Welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Don't Talk Back. When I was 18, I used to work at a fast food restaurant. I was working in the kitchen, and I had two co-workers with me, my best friend and a newish girl. We were in a rush, and my co-workers and I were doing all we could to get the food out as fast as possible. My best friend and I had about 1 year working there, so we were kinda used to the rush by now. Our other co-worker had like a month working in the kitchen, and she was doing all she could. But apparently that wasn't enough for the supervisor in charge of our shift, because she came, in the middle of the rush mind you, to scold our co-worker, because she was just lazing around. My best friend and I got mad. Not only because the scolding was unnecessary, but because we were still mid-rush and the supervisor was just wasting our time. So I said something along the lines of, "Why don't you just leave her alone? She's new and you are just making it worse. If she's being so slow, you should help us." It was normal for the supervisors to step in to help if we were stuck, but this one didn't do that. She now got mad at me and started yelling things at me, but at this point I was just ignoring her. When the rush passed, I was called to the manager's office. The manager and she berated me for talking back to our supervisor. They made me sign some paper where I promised to never talk back to our supervisor again. 30 minutes pass and I'm on break, and the supervisor comes to me trying to make some small talk. I proceed to ignore her, and she gets mad when she notices that I'm not answering her questions. So I calmly reply, "Didn't I just sign a paper where I promised that I never would talk back to you?" She then got even more mad and left me to enjoy the rest of my break. The next story is called Strictly Follow the Rules. A few weeks ago I was touring Europe in my car and caravan with the family. We arrived at a very large camping site in the middle of Sweden late afternoon. After getting our keys and a printout info from the reception, we went to find our designated pitch to set up the caravan so we could start relaxing after hours and hours of driving. So we released the kids to go find a playground and start the process of setting up camp. I back up the caravan to the pitch, detach the car, manually crank the support legs down, and so on, when a grumpy old geezer approaches. He was yelling, 4 meters, 4 meters. It was hot, I was sweating from the manual work and was a bit confused, so I asked, perhaps a bit sharply, what he is going on about. He manages to explain that the rules say the caravans have to be 4 meters apart and that I absolutely must move my caravan. At this point I was already halfway done setting up camp. Now I admit that I did put my caravan only about 1 meter from the back of the pitch, but this jerk has his own caravan roughly the same distance or less from the perimeter, and his front end ground lines are on our pitch. I go around checking the situation and leave my wife to talk with the geezer. I come back around after maybe 30 seconds and see my wife upset. Before I can ask why, she tells me that the geezer told her, verbatim, to go back to Finland, after she had pointed out that his tent cords are attached to our side. So I get angry. I'm positively seething, and for a moment I consider getting physical, but then I decide to get petty instead. So I go undo the setup we've already done. I move the caravan and double check that I'm within the rules. This took me about 7 minutes. Then I go tell the geezer that I've now complied, so if you want to be strict with the rules, then let's be strict with the rules. Your own caravan is clearly in violation of the rules, so move that thing or I promise I'll go to the reception and complain. I was so angry that I remember my hands shaking while I emphasized my message with finger pointing. I was pretty angry. We got great satisfaction seeing he had to disassemble most of his front end, crank up the support legs, get the car, attach the car, move his caravan, and then reset up everything. Took him and his partner about 25 to 30 minutes to do so. If you want to be a jerk, make sure you are also in compliance before complaining to someone else. These kinds of rules are usually more like suggestions anyway. Oh, and I also told the kids that there's a special situation here. You don't have to be quiet and consider the neighbors like normally. Instead, you can shout and play as loudly as you like, within the allowed times to make noise. And they did. Luckily, the other surrounding pitches were not occupied at the time, so this didn't bother anyone but the geezer and his partner. The last story is called I Give You 15 Minutes. I used to work for a rainforest named company several years ago that primarily focused on shipping and delivering packages and orders from their customers online. Specifically, I worked at one of the distribution warehouses. That was the last stop for packages that were to be loaded into those blue vans that bring your new stuff to your front door. Big trucks would unload packages throughout the night to be sorted and prepped by the workers. Then the full bags of packages would be loaded onto vans in the morning to be delivered by the drivers to houses. This system is repeated every day with only 2, sometimes 3 shifts of workers. And as luck would have it, I was happily placed on the night shift. The work was simple, if not exhausting, and being at night meant we didn't have to worry about the heat as much as the day shift. After the usual new hire period, I found myself assigned to one of the nightly jobs that was unanimously described as the most difficult job there. And honestly, I completely agree with that. The packages would be unloaded from the trucks onto the conveyor belt. They needed to be pushed to one side of it or the other, depending on which side of the building they would need to be going to. The packages would have a sticker with a letter, A to Z, followed by other indicators for where it would go later. The letter determined which aisle it was supposed to be in, and in turn which half of the building it would need to be on, based on where that aisle was compared to the belt. It did take a while to get used to the flow when I first started, and it did put a bit of a strain on the eyes. But I would just shut my brain off and let my eyes become unfocused as I just autopiloted the job like a madman. No one ever did better than me at this job during my time there. That's not my words, that was everyone who ever tried to replace me from that spot. Like when our unwitting antagonist of the story finally enters, a manager from the day shift that we'll call Sam. Occasionally, managers would switch around from the different shifts to make sure they all knew how the place functioned properly. Cool, no problem. I got in for my shift on the night Sam was to manage our shift for once. I gave the usual hellos and ironic good mornings to everyone preparing for the night shift and went up to the job board. Everyone got assigned a little name badge next to the job they would do that night as they came in. And since I was usually one of the first ones there, I would just say hi to the night manager as I moved my own name to the splitter position, as we both knew that it was my spot. This night, however, I went through those same motions, said hi to Sam, placed my tag on splitter and went to go prepare the split zone for my day. A few minutes later, I get called over to the job board. So, hey, I wanted to let you know that I moved you to section A for the night. Go ahead and get a scanner set up and head on over. Confused, I asked, but what about the splitting? Don't worry, we'll have it covered. We just need you over in A. I had already set up my place at the split zone, so I could handle it at my best. And he was already moving some stuff away, so he could do whatever he was doing for the night. It was basically just a couple of package racks for damaged stuff I pull off the belt, as well as a place for my small speaker. I was a bit confused as the package count was higher than average that night, and a good splitter really takes a load off of a lot of other jobs down the line. So I put on a serious face and asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Sam asked confused, "Do what? Are you sure you don't want me up here? It's supposed to get pretty busy tonight." Sam was waving me off and said, "We'll be fine. If it gets too busy, one of us managers can jump in to help." When he said that, I actually chortled aloud briefly and shook my head. I had seen the managers split before, and none of them would last the whole night if they had to do it. Very few could, and I was unrivaled at the job, so I knew what was about to happen. The first trucks had already pulled in, and they looked pretty beefy to start with. I did some rough estimations. Alright, I'll give you 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Yep, gotta go get a scanner now. Not much time before that belt starts, and I have to get ready again. He had actually seemed confused as I walked off to get ready for my new job. I was a little bummed in all honesty. Splitting was my favorite job. For me, it was kind of like being in a trance or meditating. But the man said what the man said. Once the belt started, I went along doing my job. Scanning and placing packages in bags. Not much to say, other than it was slow and boring. But I kept an eye on my watch. Sure enough, barely 10 minutes passed when one of the lane supervisors, Ambassador, entered my lane. Hey, I was smiling. They need me up front, don't they? Ambassador was also smiling. Yep, they just radioed it in. I'm here to take over until they get a replacement here. I was checking my watch. 5 minutes ahead of schedule too. Must be pretty bad. They've already had to pull Jackpot back to the front twice. Guess I'll go save the day. Jackpot was a term we use for any packages that reached the end of the belt without being sorted. They were put in a large container and wheeled back to the front to do the whole run of it again. I handed the scanner to her and quickly made my way to the split zone. It was absolute mayhem. I saw the poor replacement splitter and 2 managers, including Sam, trying to calm the monster that was this night's intake. Packages were falling from the belt. People were being buried to their knees, and Sam looked like his eyes were about to explode with how white they had gotten. I took a deep breath and cracked my knuckles mid-stride as I moved to the front of the line. I've got this. Get those packages picked up and put into Jackpot. Sam, I'm gonna need those racks back over here once it's cleared up. Mother Splitter, back up a bit and double check my work. There was absolutely zero room for debate, as everyone had no choice but to listen to what I said as I began to split the belt. The 10 minutes I was gone took me another 20 to get things running smoothly again. Needless to say, I was thanked for the rescue and told to stay there for the rest of the night, much to my pleasure. Sam also proceeded to ensure that I was designated splitter every night I was there to avoid further problems. They also started to include me in conversations on how to train new splitters for the nights I was out, and any advice to pass along from my own experiences. I guess it sometimes does pay to be so good at a job that no one can question you. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.